"Mom, are you having fun?" When my younger son, who had lent us his vacation home, called, I was alone at home. My eldest son and his wife, along with my husband, were all spending their vacation at the younger son's vacation home. My younger son was unaware that I was being treated like a housekeeper by my eldest son and his wife. I'm being treated like a housekeeper, so I'm waiting here alone at home. My words took my younger son by surprise, and he responded with a puzzled, "What?" My name is Harper, and I will turn 72 this fall. I served as a local government employee until retirement at age 60. Since then, I've been leading a relaxed life on my pension. My husband Matthew retired a bit before me. Matthew and I have 2 sons. Our younger son Oliver went to a college out of state and landed a job there as well. His wife is someone he met at work, and their life is no longer rooted here in our hometown. Maybe it's because he's far away, but he contacts us regularly, so I don't feel lonely. My eldest son and his wife started living with us the year I retired. As soon as we renovated our aging family home, our eldest son Robert suggested we live together. We know we'll continue to age. At that time, there was some unease about it being just Matthew and me, though it felt like Robert appeared as soon as the house was new. Seeking his own benefit, he is, after all, our eldest son. He's the heir, so we couldn't refuse to live together. Matthew seems indifferent, neither opposing nor approving of the arrangement. Seeing Matthew's attitude made me feel a bit embarrassed. Robert's wife Grace had continued to work after they were married, maintaining a dual-income household. I was a bit surprised when I heard she quit her job to live with us. It's not like her workplace was far, and compared to me, who had worked until retirement, she's still in her prime. Considering that no amount of savings is enough for retirement, it was surprising that she decided to quit her job and focus on household chores. "It's okay if I don't work. I've always admired being a housewife," Grace said with a smile. It seems she didn't really like her job. If she's happy being a housewife and taking care of the house, that's helpful for us. Living together might not be so bad, I thought. But once we started living together, such carefree thoughts quickly disappeared. The disagreement started on the very first day of moving in. We argued about which room to choose. We had prepared a room for Robert and his wife, which was originally designed for guests. It was spacious and should have been fine. However, Grace said, "I want a room with better sunlight." Indeed, the room gets the afternoon sun, so the daylight might not be the best during certain times of the day. "I don't like this damp room," Grace complained to Robert, glancing at me occasionally. She probably expected me to offer to swap rooms. Seeing right through her intentions, I held my tongue. After all, it was Robert and his wife who asked to move in. I didn't think we needed to back down. But Matthew had a different opinion. "There's no helping it. Let's give in to the younger ones." Matthew said this and suggested to me, "Shall we move?" Ignoring my opinion was typical of him. Matthew has always been lenient with Robert and strict with Oliver. He claims to have raised both sons equally, but the difference is obvious, and I've had to comfort Oliver many times. In the end, our room was moved at Matthew's insistence. Robert and his wife ended up using the room we were supposed to use. Had there been even a simple thank you from them, I might have been able to settle down. But we never heard those words from either Grace or Robert. They acted like it was a given, and I remember feeling very angry. It seemed unlikely that Grace and I would become close, given how things were from the start of living together. And it didn't take long to confirm that premonition. Grace retired from her job when they moved in. She had said she admired being a housewife, so I thought she would want to do things like cooking. But in reality, she didn't do any housework at all. She would either laze around the house all day or go out to play in the morning and return in the evening. Laundry, cleaning, and meal preparations all became my responsibilities. I thought it was only natural that she should help a bit, but Grace had a different opinion. "It would be helpful if you could help with the housework a little," I had told Grace this because her behavior was too much. But she immediately tattled to Robert, and she apparently told him that I had scolded her harshly. Of course, I hadn't scolded her at all. I had merely spoken to her gently. Grace supposedly pleaded with tears. Now I was the one being blamed. Do you enjoy harassing my wife? Robert hurled such words at me, leaving me stunned. He wasn't the kind of child to say such things to a parent. It was entirely the influence of his wife. Mom is in charge of the housework because Grace is holding back from helping to make sure Mom doesn't get senile. Don't you understand her consideration? I'm left speechless by such a ludicrous excuse. Essentially, Grace is saying that she doesn't do housework for my sake. It seems she claims she wants to do it, but is holding back for my benefit. I think it's incredibly brazen, and I'm at a loss for words. It would be one thing if it were just Robert, but even Matthew agrees with Grace, casually saying, "You should do it." He's never washed a single dish, yet he's quick to talk big. Despite living with Robert and his wife, all the household chores have become my responsibility. I think it didn't take long for my role to become akin to that of a housekeeper. One day, amid such a routine, I got a call from Oliver. He said he bought a log cabin-style vacation home for summer retreats. After graduating from college, Oliver left his job after 3 years. Then, he started a gaming company with some friends from college. Robert used to mock Oliver, saying, "He'll surely fail." But it turned out to be a huge success. Now Oliver is the CEO and apparently making a good income. Hearing about the purchase of the vacation home, I'm happy that things are going well for him. On the other hand, Robert seems displeased. I think he's envious that Oliver is surpassing him in many ways. However, despite all his grumbling, Robert quickly changed his tune when Oliver said, "Let me know when you want to use the vacation home." Grace had the exact same reaction, and I'm impressed at how couples start to resemble each other. By this time, I had become the de facto housekeeper of this house. I was handling all the household chores alone and had reached a point where Grace was bossing me around with menial tasks. The other day, she even told me to polish her shoes. I noticed that I no longer have the energy to get angry, which is chilling. I wonder what will become of me if I continue to lose all my energy. Such fears crossed my mind. Robert and his wife quickly contacted Oliver and started planning to borrow the vacation home for a trip. Matthew was also planning to go along. In such times, I am left out. Just the other day, under the guise of a family trip, Robert, his wife, and Matthew went on a trip. I thought I was going too, but was left dumbfounded when they left me behind on the day of the trip. "Harper, you have various tasks at home, don't you?" "It's a shame you don't have the time," Grace said, making my blood boil. Matthew pretends not to hear. Robert does whatever Grace says. In this house, I am not a family member, but a housekeeper. I start telling myself that. Of course, I will wait at home alone for this vacation home trip as well. If I don't have any expectations from the start, I won't be disappointed. I didn't join the conversation and started preparing dinner. The weekend arrived and the three of them, whose trip I prepared, headed to Oliver's vacation home. By the way, I was the one who prepared for the trip. The three of them did nothing. However, when the three of them go on a trip, I get more free time. I'm truly happy about that. I decided to relax on the sofa for the first time in a long time. The next time I woke up, it was already late in the afternoon. Being freed from those three, I must have been exhausted. I thought about ordering something I like for dinner and picked up my mobile phone. At that moment, the ringtone sounded loudly. I was startled and almost dropped my mobile phone. I saw a call from Oliver on the screen. "Thanks for today, for letting me use the vacation home." I said this as I answered the phone. I remember that Oliver had bought the vacation home but hadn't used it himself because he was too busy with work. I felt a bit guilty for using it before him. "Don't worry about it. I actually enjoy working," he said cheerfully. Oliver's always bright voice lifted my spirits a bit. It felt like it had been a while since someone had spoken to me so kindly. "Isn't it a nice place?" "Mom, are you enjoying yourself?" Oliver asked, sounding happy. Hearing his voice, I felt like I was on the verge of tears. I didn't want to worry Oliver, but today I couldn't hold back. "I'm the housekeeper, so I'm just waiting at home alone," I said truthfully. The urge to protect Robert and his family, and Matthew, had completely vanished. "That's right. In this house, I'm just the housekeeper. All the household chores are my job. I wasn't even taken along on the family vacation. This time too, I'm just waiting here alone." Once I started talking, my feelings of frustration, regret, and sadness spilled out all at once. I think my voice almost sounded like a scream by the end. The emotions I had been holding back poured out, and my sobs echoed in the empty house. "What? What do you mean? They left Mom behind?" Oliver sounded shocked. He seemed to notice I was crying and quickly said, "I'm on my way," before hanging up. Oliver lived about a 2-hour drive away, but if Oliver said he's coming, he would be here soon. He was always like that. True to his word, Oliver arrived at our family home quickly. The moment he parked in the yard, he rushed through the front door. "Mom, are you okay?" Oliver called out to me as I blankly sat in the living room. Seeing Oliver's face, I felt a sense of relief and tears started to flow. It seemed that Sophia, the wife of my second son, came along as well. She gently draped her coat over my shoulders. "I'll make something warm to eat. I'll take over the kitchen. Please stay with Harper." Sophia said that and disappeared into the kitchen. "What's going on?" "Mom, tell me everything." Prompted by Oliver, I revealed everything about my situation since I started living with Robert's family. As I spoke, I felt a mix of frustration and shame, and I stumbled over my words several times. Each time, Oliver gently told me, "Take your time, calm down." I tried to speak without getting too emotional. Partway through, Sophia, having finished preparing the meal, also sat close, listening with tears in her eyes. When I finished telling everything, Oliver was furious. "I'm so sorry, I didn't notice any of this was happening." He apologized repeatedly. Sophia also apologized many times. I can't forget the meal Sophia made for me that day. It had been a long time since I had eaten a meal made by someone else. The dishes were considerate and comforting, with a gentle taste. I was also happy that she remembered my favorite dish, meatloaf. "I'm thinking of teaching my brother a lesson," Oliver said at the dining table. I wanted to break free from this life, so I quietly nodded in agreement. The counterattack against Robert and his wife had begun from this moment. During the night, I packed my bags. When I only packed what truly mattered, my belongings turned out to be surprisingly few. By the end of the night, I had left the house I had lived in for many years. The next day at noon, my cell phone rang. Checking the screen, I saw it was from Robert. As I hesitated whether to answer or not, Sophia probably noticed who was calling. She shook her head and said, "You shouldn't answer it." Feeling it would be tiresome to explain everything to Robert, I decided to ignore the call. Then, Oliver's cell phone rang. Oliver had been out since early morning and had just returned from visiting various places. He sets his phone on the table and answers the call on speaker. He intends for us to hear the conversation with Robert as well. "What's going on? We were kicked out of the vacation home early this morning. What's happening?" Robert's angry voice blared suddenly. In the background, the sound of Grace arguing with someone could be heard. I decided to get rid of the vacation home. Demolition starts today, so you can't use it anymore. You guys should head back home. Oliver casually responded. At this, Robert exploded in rage, hurling insults at Oliver. He criticizes, saying things like it's not a real job, or that being a president isn't a big deal. To top it off, he even suggests billing Oliver for the travel expenses. Is Dad with you? To Oliver's question, Robert replied. Dad went back earlier. He kept saying last night that he should have brought Mom along, and that it would have been better if he had. Hearing Robert's words, I felt relieved knowing that Matthew was somewhat concerned about me. The thought that there were still fragments of conscious and marital affection left made me happy. Hey, what's happening? Aren't you the CEO? Do something. Our vacation is ruined. Impatient with the stalemate, Grace interjected into the conversation. Oliver's brows furrowed, revealing his discomfort. Oh, sister-in-law, long time no see. Aren't you always on vacation? I heard the housewife abandoned her duties, right? Oliver said mockingly, to which Grace started yelling, How rude! She then began cursing Oliver, just like Robert had. Oliver seemed unaffected by anything said to him, remaining calm. As Grace's tirade reached its peak, he abruptly hung up. Mom, you can stay here as long as you want. I'll contact Dad and have him come here, Oliver said with a smile. You can't decide something so important on your own. You two should discuss it together. I hurriedly looked at Sophia. Then Sophia smiled and said, Understood. Let's live together. Oliver mentioned that he was thinking of building a home soon, and considered making it a two-family house. It was a generous offer, but I wondered what would happen to our family home. When I posed this question to Oliver, he replied with a mischievous grin. My sibling is going to be so shocked. Oliver, who had been out since early morning, seemed to have set something up and was looking pleased. He probably intends to give Robert and his wife a stern warning by retaliating on my behalf. In the end, I contacted Matthew and asked him to come directly to Oliver's house. I explained that he would be living in this house from now on. Matthew seems pleased, saying, That's a generous offer. Though Matthew thought he was getting along well with Robert and his wife. It seemed that Grace was harassing him behind the scenes. Going on trips together was apparently all a scheme to make Matthew pay. He informed me that Robert and his wife don't pay a dime. Still, for his beloved son, Matthew seemed to have endured it. We should have talked more with each other, I said. Matthew smiled warily and agreed, saying, Yeah. Matthew said to Oliver, I'm counting on you. Oliver, who had always been raised strictly by Matthew, looked a bit surprised, but quickly nodded with joy. In the evening, my mobile phone and Oliver's mobile phone rang simultaneously. I had a call from Grace, and Oliver had a call from Robert. We decided to respond first from my mobile phone after consulting. Just like in the morning, I turned on the speaker and answered. Hello? What's up? I tried to keep my cool as I spoke. Grace seemed to dislike my attitude. What? How can you be so relaxed? Isn't it your job to protect the house? What is this mess? You are useless. Her anger seemed to have peaked. What happened? What exactly is going on? Our house is gone. What is this? It's just an empty lot. There's even a for sale sign. Hearing Grace's scream, I quickly looked at Oliver's face. Oliver had an awkward smile on his face. I see. This is what Oliver had been busy arranging since the morning. Oliver was a child who, once he decided to do something, would do it thoroughly. His methods were so bold that they often surprised adults. Oliver had eliminated a place for Robert and his wife to return to. It seemed that when Robert and his wife came back, the contractors were just leaving. The building was completely gone, with only a bit of the foundation concrete remaining. Their belongings seemed to be piled up in a corner of the yard. The building was indeed in Matthew's name, and it was possible to demolish it with Matthew's permission. But I thought the land was inherited by Robert. Then Sophia quietly informed me. Apparently, Robert and his wife were in debt to Oliver. As collateral, they seem to have transferred the ownership of the land to Oliver. Of course they haven't repaid it since. Sister-in-law, let me talk to my brother. Oliver said that and silenced the screaming Grace. That's when they seemed to realize that we were together. Is Mom with you too? What is this? Are you making fun of us? Robert seemed to be barely containing his anger. He probably wanted to maintain his dignity as a brother. Mocking such a Robert, Oliver explained. He simply stated that he had put the land up for sale. If you need a reason, I'll tell you. A couple who treats mom like a housekeeper doesn't deserve that land, right? Consider it a punishment for doing as you please on my land and give up. Oliver's words made Robert catch his breath. Being brothers, they knew each other's personalities well. Robert knew all too well that once Oliver made up his mind, he wouldn't back down. Big brother can spend the rest of his life with that wicked wife of his. He doesn't need mom anymore, right? If he needs a housekeeper, he should hire one with his money. Goodbye. Saying this, Oliver tries to abruptly end the call, just like he did in the morning. There was something I desperately needed to say to Robert and his wife. I don't want to have anything to do with you two from now on. Oh, I guess I was never family. I'll be resigning as your housekeeper. Facing the phone, I declared as loudly as I could to Robert and his wife. Hold on, wait, Mom! Robert's voice came through the phone speaker, but I ignored it and ended the call. I felt a sense of liberation. Immediately after, there were incoming calls from Robert, but I kept ignoring them and eventually blocked them. I felt a sudden release of tension. That settles it, Mom, Oliver said with a smile. Later, Robert and his wife came to Oliver's house unannounced. When confronted by Robert about their intentions, Oliver showed him the deed to the land. Oliver stated there was no reason for them to complain, as it was his land, and Robert was checking our expressions. Robert probably didn't want his parents to know that he had lost the land to pay off a debt from his brother. I understood Robert's desire to maintain his dignity, but it's a futile effort, because we know everything. Finally, an infuriated Grace lunged at me. How dare you, just a housekeeper! The one who snapped at Grace's words was Sophia. Get out! She shouted, pushing Robert and his wife out the front door. We warned Robert and his wife that we would call the police if they caused any more trouble. Reluctantly, Robert and his wife left. In the end, Robert and his wife, having lost their home, seemed to be relying on Grace's sister. Going to Grace's family home was something Robert's pride wouldn't allow. The financially strapped Robert and his wife, who had borrowed money from Oliver, are now unable to rent a place to live. They can't borrow money from Oliver anymore. It seems they are still living uncomfortably. Grace is apparently being treated like a housekeeper at her sister's place, much like I was before, and is feeling bitter. Is this what they call karma? The reason for the debt seems to be Grace's extravagant spending, and their marriage is currently in the worst state. I think divorce is only a matter of time. My husband and I are living in a two-family home built for us by Oliver and his wife. The interior is thoughtfully designed to accommodate our needs in our old age, making it extremely comfortable. Every evening, Sophia shares some deli food with us, marking a stark contrast from our previous life. Matthew has reverted back to his kind self, cherishing me once again. Finally, we have secured a peaceful retirement, and we couldn't be happier.